Hi, my name is Richard Soriano. I'm a front-end developer, and today I'm going to demo my GraphQL project, Missing Persons. It's made out of Node.js, GraphQL, and a static DB. So like Bruce Lee says, I'd rather fight a guy that knows 1,000 moves rather than some guy who knows one move and practiced it 1,000 times. The reason I'm saying that is because it's really important to, to build your skills as a really good programmer, and you do that by small, repetitious projects. So today, I'd like to just show you my 3 things. I'd like to go over the query, the data relationships, and the code. So here is Apollo GraphQL Playground. And this is a great intro. If you're interested in GraphQL, I highly recommend it. It's easy to scale up all of your projects, and it'll make you really level up as a professional developer. So here is the syntax. So you say query, missing persons is your entity, and here are the fields. So yeah, let's use the prettify button, prettify. So as you can see, if you prettify it, cleans it up. This left panel is from the client. And when you execute it, actually, let's start the server. So here, we just run npm start. It kicks up Babel, and here it goes. So it returns an array of data, missing persons. It's pretty self-explanatory. You got the ID, first name, last name. So missing persons has the record John Snow, and it also has Arya Stark that's missing. So if you want more fields, you can type in like age, city, and when you run it, it will return to you what you need. And this is great because it's totally customizable. So like if you're doing a mobile app, you only need to request the information that you need, and you really want to keep your data sets very small, okay? And the other cool thing is that you have the Schema Panel. So when you click on that, you can see the query. It's like an X-ray machine. So you click on missing persons, and the type that it runs it on is the type missing person. So it exposes all of the fields. First name shows all the scalar values such as string, integer. And what's key is that it also helps you define an array. And guardians is an array of the type guardian. The exclamation point is saying that it's required. So guardian type is required, and an array of guardian is required. So, so that's really important. And then when you click on guardian, voila, the details of your guardian come up. So you have this object guardian, and again, the same thing, first, last name, city, and then guardian now points to persons, missing persons, and that's an array. And on to the point that we can go silly, we can go to guardians and missing persons, but that just gets silly. So let's go back. And so when you're doing missing persons, so as you can see, I have multiple queries all set up. You can have guardians. So the way you call it is just guardian and first name, last name. You can prettify it, so it helps make it, it makes it that much more readable, which is great. When you execute it, you can see Jon Snow, and he's missing at the wall. And who reported him? His dad, Eddard Ned Stark. And who's also missing is Arya Stark. So it begs the question, well, can you look at Guardian and see missing persons? Well, yes, you can. So if you look at guardians, you have the same thing. Okay, execute it, and you can see all of the guardians who are missing people. So you have Edard, Walter Frey, Cersei, and Jamie. And then you can see, well, if these who, you can see the missing persons that were reported by the guardians. So let's run that, open that up a little bit. And so you can see like Eddard Stark, he's missing Jon Snow since a few days ago. And then he's also missing Arya, and she was missing at Winterfell. And Marcella, obviously that's wrong if you watch the TV series or read the books, and on and on. So that's, which brings me to my next point, which is the relationships. So when I was doing this project, I was thinking, okay, well, if there's some sort of disaster and you want to report a missing person, well, what are the objects? So the Guardian would report a missing person. So you'd have two objects, Guardian and missing person, and then they would be related through missing persons, and Guardian would point to missing persons. So I'm a SQL person, so I tend to think of things PK as primary key, depends what database you're using, but essentially that is that defines a uniqueness in every record. And so someone can be a witness and saying, hey, I saw that person, I saw Arya Stark. So then they can report, they can write a little message and saying, I saw Arya Stark. So the witness would have a message, and then message would point to witness. So a witness can have multiple messages. That's why you have this array. And a message can only have one witness. So you can have a one-to-one relationship. And then with message, this would also point to here, missing persons. So when you're designing stuff, you want to think, well, what objects am I going to need, and what is the relationship? I mean, you can go crazy with this, obviously, but always try to keep things simple. And I'm a visual person, so I love graphs. I love the schema. I love being able to see inside. So this is my interface. This is the playground from Apollo. And so just a couple of key points is that you have your tabs of your queries. You want to use this to reload your schema. This to execute it. And then you can also use this. If you mistype something, it helps autocorrect you. And then when you hit error, it will actually try to help you. It will give you errors, which is an array, and it'll try to make a suggestion. Did you mean first name or last name? Because I typed in first names. So it's really trying to help you. And well, you're thinking, well, what's the difference between this and like a REST API? Well, the REST API, this one only hits one endpoint, and it does a post to it. Whereas an endpoint, a REST API, you could have multiple ones. So you would have guardians, obviously, /guardians or /missing persons. And so you can have multiple endpoints, but you don't always know what those endpoints are. And this one use post, whereas in REST API, you would use the 4 horsemen, put, patch, query, get, and delete. So put, patch, get, and delete. And I think there's one more, but I've never used it. And so you always point to localhost 4000. So as you saw in my diagram, there's witnesses. You can have witness. When you execute it, this faces man has no messages. So that's what it looks like when you have an empty array. And then Hodor posted a message, and his is from a mute witness. And you're like, if you find her, do not confront her. Tell her that her family loves her. Well, who is he talking about? So you'd want to add in missing person. And you'd say, well, who's this person talking about? You'd say last name and the city and the age. So again, this message has a one-to-one relationship with missing person. And voila, he's talking about Arya Stark from Winterfell. She's only age 13. I think she is in the book. I think she was 10 in the book. And then by the time she becomes an assassin killer, she's already like 13. And then you have witnesses, missing persons, on and on. So it's really good stuff. So obviously, when you're in production, you want to disable this so that way people don't look at your data. All right, so let's jump into the code. So there are three things I want to jump into the code. So one is a static database. So here I'm in index, and here is my database. It's just a static database. And I'm going to pass that database to GraphQL server. And GraphQL server is the instantiation of the object that I want. So as you can see here, I pass it through the context. This is one of the many parameters that you pass to your GraphQL server. So when you click on database, you will see this database that I've defined and I export it. But if you scroll to the top, it's just flat arrays. That's all it is, nothing fancy. And these are hand coded. So like missing persons. So like this ID is 1001. Guardian is 1101. And this refers to, if you go to Guardians, 1101. And that's how they're related. So you want to make sure if and when you're just practicing this, you want to make sure that you get that information correct. All right, and the next thing I want to go over is the type defs. So type defs, that's where you define your types. So here you can see it's schema GraphQL. So one, you define your query. And these are the types of queries that you can have. In this case, missing persons, I had done one where you can pass parameters, but we won't go over that in another case. You pass parameters, or you can, or it's not required, but you can pass parameters and it returns to you an array of missing persons. So here's your custom type, missing person. And then at the bottom, again, relationships is key. I love the scalar, variables. You can also have some more like Boolean. You can have date, and what's another one? You can have float. And the custom types is where it's going to help you. So you have an array of guardians. Guardians points to one type of guardian, and witnesses, and messages. And the last part are the resolvers. So the resolvers are sort of like the functions, the workhorse, where they really like work to get the data and to build that relationship, make sure that that data is uniform to what you need. So I put the resolvers in this folder resolvers. And so if you look at missing person, you can see this function. You can see guardians, and guardians is a function, and it returns to you, well, which guardian matches with this missing person. So two parameters, two arguments that are really important is parent, which refers to missing person, and then DB, which refers to the database or the array of guardians that have come to you. So you use the filter, and filter returns an array of the data. And when this evaluates to true, it will return that through filter. So that's always important to remember because I always mix up filter and find for some reason. I think it's because of the first two letters. So, so you have missing persons, and then you have guardian, which again returns missing person, which does the reverse. It's the exact same thing. So guardians returns missing persons. And then you have witness, same thing. Witness returns to you multiple messages. But when we go to the message, this is really important. So message, one witness and one missing person. The key difference here between the other ones is that you want to use find. Why do you want to use find? Because it returns to you one record that evaluates true for the statement. And also, just a quick note, is that you also want to take advantage of IE6. So here, as you can see, I just have this statement. And here I have two returns. And then whenever I watch that, sometimes I'm like, oh, a return over return. Oh, what does that mean? To me, it looks a little cleaner. So you can remove this return and it will still work. And then since you are only evaluating one statement, you don't need that bracket. When you save it, it cleans it up, and now you only have one line. How beautiful is that? So when you run it, it still runs. So that's great. Couple of fun things that I learned doing this is that you want to avoid using keywords, obviously. I mean, that goes without saying, but like, I was thinking of doing like parent and, the missing kid. So, but parent is obviously a word. And so I was doing like, instead of witness or guardian, I was typing parent. And then that screwed me up. Another thing, just to let you know, is that for this package, I'm using GraphQL Yoga, which is 1.16.7. And then also something really cool, if you want to share your data, let's say you want to share it, you click on share Playground, and you could share this. And it gives you a URL that you could paste and paste and go. Oh, let's see if I got this right. How is this playground? Anyways, when you click on this playground, you can actually share it, which is really cool. I'm not exactly sure how it works, but you could share the playground. So anyways, happy coding, and thank you very much for listening, and have an awesome day.